The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Jesus said to his disciples, "If you love me, you will keep my commandments. And I will ask the Father, and he will give you another, an advocate, to be with you always, the Spirit of truth, whom the Word cannot accept because it neither sees nor knows him. But you know him because he remains with you and will be with you. I will not leave you orphans. I will come to you. In a little while the world will no longer see me, but you will see me because I live and you will live. On that day you will realize that I am in my Father, and you are in me, and I am in you. And whoever has my commandments and observes them is the one who loves me. And whoever loves me will be loved by my Father, and I will love him and reveal himself to him." The Gospel of the Lord. Whoever loves me will be loved by my Father. I will love him, reveal myself to him. Perhaps I had a wicked childhood. Perhaps I had a miserable youth. But somewhere in my wicked, miserable past, there must have been a moment of truth. For here you are, standing there, loving me, whether or not you should. So somewhere in my youth or childhood, I must have done something good. I think it's 1966 or around there. The Sound of Music was debuted on film, a version of the same play that had been featured in the 1950s on Broadway. And of course, when they took that Broadway play, The Sound of Music, into film, they were concerned that there wasn't enough sexual energy between the two main characters, the postulant nun coming from the convent to be the nanny to the captain's children. So the captain and of course the nanny nun, Maria, have this growing relationship. But they didn't think it was sexy enough or had enough sexual tension. So they took a song, I believe, called "Ordinary Couple," and they replaced it with this song called "Something Good," to kind of, in some ways, actually have a scene where that love could be seen with more energy, and I think to also talk about how that love grows seemed to be some of the goals of this particular song. I like this song because it talks about a gratuitous love, a love that's maybe not even deserved, but nonetheless given. And I think that's where we are at this point in the Easter season, is to really contemplate God's gratuitous, generous love to us so that we can then be empowered to be who we're called to be. And maybe then overcome the kind of things that we get hung up on, where we might not accept that love and not let it empower us to action. Love is always, as St. Ignatius says, prone to lead us to action, to be put into actions, not just words. It's not just ideas. It's certainly not just sentiments. And so there's this sometimes way in which we stall ourselves, because it's easier. It's easier for us not to take on the work of love, the challenge of love, if we feel like we don't deserve it. So we get into this thing where we're, I must have done something wrong and therefore I'm not deserving, and this is all about earning love. No, it's not actually. And in today's gospel, Jesus says that. There's a spirit of truth that speaks to us. The world doesn't quite understand it or accept it. But there's a way in which I come to you and you will realize that I'm offering you a unity, a remaining and sustaining love. These chapters from John's Gospel capture that all the time, saying there's this remaining and sustaining love that's in you. And so therefore, step into it, accept it, let it be. Because there at the end it says, whoever loves me will be loved by God. This is all about a unity of love. And you and I probably have experienced in our lives people who have loved us when we know that if they were to compute it out, and think about whether we're deserving of that love, they wouldn't offer it. But people don't do that. Today, we're celebrating Mother's Day, a way in which we reflect on that gift, that vocation of parenthood. Parents come in all kinds of forms. I don't know any parent who's perfectly good at what they do. I don't know one, not one. And I would argue there probably isn't one. Because it's an imperfect calling. It's a calling that requires our best efforts, agonizing efforts at times, frustrating efforts, but it also requires the grace of God if we're to really live that vocation, which is true of all vocations. But man, the stakes in parenthood are a lot higher, right? We're raising children. We're caring for the next generation. We're determining lots of things. And like that old song from The Sound of Music, it says, well, maybe there were wicked and miserable things that happened to us in our youth, or that maybe we made mistakes as either a parent or child, either way. But the point is, there's a way in which love can still be there in the mix and messiness of that. Of course, love can still be there. That's what our God tells us. We need to know that because we live in a really messy world. We live in a world where relationships are put out to us as needing to be transactional. I give you something and I expect something in return. You know, I pardon you, therefore you owe me now. It's all quid pro quo. It's a zero-sum game. This is the way some people imagine the world. And unfortunately, those people have something broken in them. Broken about their humanity, something that's been arrested in their own development or put on hold or ignored. I don't know, and it might have been because something in their childhood caused them to stop acknowledging that part of their humanity or not letting it grow. There are, and I certainly can't speak for other places, but I live here in the United States at this time. I think there's a high percentage of people who are deeply broken. So they live in a place in which they can't even explain or understand a gift of hope. They're cynical. It's a life of grievance. Now, because they're not made to do that and be that, because of a loving God, that can all be healed. That can all be helped. I don't know exactly how to do that for anybody else except myself, and I only know how to do that for myself by reaching out to a God who can give me the grace for that kind of a journey. Any of us who've had to work through difficult things in our lives, any of us who have had to overcome difficult mistakes in our lives, we all know that it's part of good effort and God's grace that makes that work. Talk to anybody in a 12-step program and they'll talk to you about the need for grace from a higher power. It may come in different shapes of theology, but the core belief there is we depend upon a grace of God. And so I think there's a way in which today's gospel, where Jesus says, I'm going to give you an advocate, somebody who's for you, not only just cheering for you, but an advocate who's giving you gifts that you need. This Spirit's coming at you, going to be for you. I am a God that's for you. I will give that Spirit that you need, a grace in your life, here, there, and everywhere. Small graces, large graces, that will help you to do the things that you need to do in order to be loving. To be able to look at each other and say, in the mess of our lives, you know, maybe we shouldn't, but we do love. And love exists here. There's a point in the old song between the captain and Maria and in The Sound of Music that says, nothing comes from nothing, nothing ever could. So somewhere in my youth and childhood, I must have done something good. Well, there is a way in which the gratuitous love of God that's given to us comes from nothing except God's gracious offer. And there's a way, though, that we don't need to do anything to get that love. We need to step into that offer of love, to live in that love so that something good can be ours, so that we can respond and act out of a goodness, so that we can put the practice of love into action. And so, friends, I think we need to do that certainly for ourselves and in our personal relationships, and then we need to look at our communities that are very broken right now and see where and how we can, in fact, step into a love that empowers us, gives us a hope that moves us forward into a deepened faith, but a real practice of love. Because somewhere in my youth and your youth and all of our youths, we were given from the beginning by God that goodness and that love that is ours. And you and I are always given then, therefore, the grace to let that be and to let that lead us into actions of continued love. Love that allows us to establish a peace and a harmony with one another, a practice of justice, and a way of teaching others, and especially maybe the next generation, whether we're parents or just significant adults in a child's life. Every child needs many significant adults, not just a parent. But if we can then step into that love and teach it to the next generation, my friend, we're doing something very good. Very, very good, something good. Amen.